Hello, and thank you for listening to the Keto Answers podcast. This week, I have a lovely guest on. His name is Gustin Mares. He's my co-founder with Perfect Keto. A lot of you guys don't know Gustin. He is also the co-founder of Kettle Fire, a hot wellness brand. And we sort of riff. We always have random conversations about health, nutrition, wellness, state of food, etc. And this one we went deep on the history of Perfect Keto. Why we started it and how things have grown since then, the food industry, why we think it's messed up, the future of food, lab-grown meat, and everything down to his sleep schedule. So I hope you guys enjoy and have as much fun as we did recording it. Before we get to the episode, I wanted to chat about our sponsor, Perfect Keto. Perfect Keto is all about making a ketogenic diet healthy and accessible. Whether you're reading all of our online guides or articles or enjoying Perfect Keto's exogenous ketones or any other keto-friendly products, everything you need to make keto work for you is at perfectketo.com. I know what you're thinking. Hey, aren't you the founder of Perfect Keto? Yep, that's right. And all of my insanely high standards have been put into making each and every product. My background as a functional medicine clinician helps me craft the cleanest and healthiest possible products and the best information about a ketogenic diet. Head on over to perfectketo.com to learn anything you need to know about the ketogenic diet. And if you've never tried any of our products before, feel free to use the code KETOPODCAST for 20% off your first order. With that being said, let's get into the show. All right, everybody, the moment you've been waiting for, or I guess the moment Justin's been waiting for, as we have Gustin Mares here on the show, who's been begging since day one, which is almost, 2 years, year and a half?
Begging, yep.
Literally.
Well, I recorded the first podcast.
Well, that was
never
a
aired.
different podcast. That was a different podcast. So, Gustin here, why don't you introduce yourself? I don't know. We'll see how this goes.
I am Gustin. I am the co-founder of Perfect Keto and also founded another wellness brand called Kettle Fire.
Well, a wellness brand.
Yeah. Health food brand.
Health food lifestyle brand. Kettle Fire. A lot of people don't know Gustin often refers to himself as the nerd behind the computer.
True.
So yeah. I mean, he's been begging literally every single day since we launched the podcast. Can I please come on and talk about my health and wellness brand? So here we are, an hour about broth.
The secret co-founder is revealed.
Yeah, maybe people didn't know, but we have an awesome team. You guys have heard Alex and Chris both ask questions, being here, come on, be co-hosts, and now we have sort of a interviewee situation going on with Gustin, the silent co-founder.
Silent co-founder. It's my first time human interacting today. Yeah. And just behind a computer.
We let him out of the cage.
18 hours.
out of the closet.
It's been a great day.
And
I'm really nervous now.
So, I mean, do you want to talk about the history of Perfect Keto? What are we going to talk about today?
We can talk about, I don't know how interested people will be in the history of Perfect Keto. So I think we should talk about it. You just never know. And then we can talk about other topics.
So because you think people aren't going to be interested, you think we should talk about it?
I do. I want to
Let's see how many people tune out this early.
I want to see how many people we can get to unsubscribe from the podcast.
Yeah, there aren't many left. So if the number is over 8, we're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting silent co-founders on, this is not going well.
Right. So the history all started in
it was really
2016.
Dark. It's 1989.
Low point of our lives. Both sad little boys in San Francisco.
Yep.
How else would you take that story from there?
Sad little boys from San Francisco pining to start something new.
Yeah. There had to be a better way.
Exactly. No, I think that we met at a pretty opportune time. You were going through a lot personally. I was super depressed being a solo founder. And yeah, I think it's just funny how things worked out.
Yeah, Gustin convinced me to leave my clinic systems.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that? I don't know that you've talked a lot about your clinics to the audience.
All 8 of them?
All 8 of them.
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of sports med stuff, functional medicine, in San Francisco. Also had what is now Equip, sort of as a side project, which was just pushing a lot of whole food nutrition to people and using supplements to do so. So beef protein, sweet potato powder, greens powder, etc. Sort of cobbled together a bunch of other founders in San Francisco who had companies that weren't related to tech, since it's a very rare thing in San Francisco. Gustin, again, like he said, but Wait, you said solo founder?
Basically. I mean, so at the time when we first met, we got introduced to a friend,
Who had a
Josh.
coconut water,
Yeah, cold brew coconut water.
So like we all had these companies that weren't tech companies, that were food companies.
Yep.
Coffee. So Fellow Coffee, Jake from that, lawyer, some coconut gelato.
Yeah, Jonay.
Some Peak. You guys may know
Cream yogurt.
the triple cream yogurt.
Yep.
On and on. Jeff with Katava / Mealman, who's now part of the Perfect Keto staff. So we all kind of banded together, and I was still practicing day to day, just doing what was formerly Pure Wad, now Equip on my off hours.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so when we met, you were at your clinic. You had this tiny little side business that was actually really substantial and could cover all of your monthly cost of living. And you were like, I think that I need to leave my clinics and do something, but I don't know how I'll pay for anything. And that's when we kind of talked about, dude, you have a meaningful side business.
Yeah, you said, hey, dummy.
Yeah.
Look here. So, yeah.
Take the leap.
Yeah. I mean, Justin, your background before that, you're
the
nerd behind the computer. So
yeah, the nerd behind the computer. So I moved to San Francisco in 2013. I was running growth for a software business called
not marketing, it's growth.
Growth. Yeah.
What's the difference between those two?
So I would say that marketing, that's a funny question. I haven't had anyone ask me that in forever. So marketing is kind of more of a traditional discipline. Like, how do I get my stuff in front of customers? How do I buy ads? How do I do all that kind of stuff? I would say growth is more of it touches on more facets of a company. Like, you're not only thinking about like, how do I acquire more users, but you're also thinking about how do I make sure that they love the products? How do I make sure they return? How do I make sure they repurchase? And then how do I make sure that they talk about and share the love for Perfect Keto or whatever brand it is.
Whatever health and wellness brand.
Whatever health and wellness
Whatever
brand.
health and wellness lifestyle brand.
Exactly. Whatever SEO blog you're trying to promote. So I was running growth of this developer tools company. We were selling software to software developers. If you want to get really technical, we were selling Redis databases as a service. Yeah. Like my entire life was running meetups and talking to developers over like pizza and beer. And I was always the weird guy who was like, no, I'm good. No, I don't need any. No, good.
Were you more or less depressed then versus when we first met?
Certainly more depressed. I mean, I basically came out of that experience. We fortunately got acquired, like learned a lot, worked with a lot of great people. But coming out of that, I was like, man, I do not want to sell software to software developers. This is like not a thing I care about. This is actively like a community that I think is unhealthy and just doesn't have the same values as I do. And so wanted to start something in the health and wellness and food kind of industry.
At what point did you publish your best-selling book, Traction, How Any Startup Can Achieve Massive Growth?
Yep. So I co-authored separately. I co-authored a book that came out, I guess, right after we were acquired, about 5 months after we were acquired.
So were you still doing that then for a couple months after that, or
the book?
Yeah, I didn't even know when the gap was between when you published that and when you started Kettle Fire.
Yeah. So I published in August of 2014, I believe.
2 years.
Yeah.
A year and a half.
Yeah. So August of 2014, and then we launched Kettle Fire in August 2015. So
yeah. So if you guys didn't catch that, Justin is the best-selling author.
Yep.
On growth, not marketing, and a book of growth.
Yep. Growth marketing called Traction. There are 2 Traction books on Amazon. Ours is one of the 2.
The yellow one.
The blue one.
Blue.
The one without the tire on the cover.
It used to be yellow.
Yeah.
First edition, baby.
Yep. First edition. So yeah, so I launched that book and then took some time off, traveled, did some like speaking on growth and marketing and shit. Went to Europe, came back, and then decided, like, was looking at a couple ideas, was actually looking at starting a business in trying to do like a kind of technology play to help with drug and alcohol addiction, or doing something in food.
Was this the coconut water alcohol?
This is not.
To help with mental health?
Yeah, this is not. It was kind of ironic at that time. That was one of the ideas I was looking at. But I was basically looking at starting what I think, in 2014, think about it, I think it would have eventually turned into like White Claw or something like that. Like, you're kind of seeing this sparkling, low alcohol beverage everywhere. And like, this is what we were thinking about doing in 2014.
Well, you would have blown through your Series A before you would have gotten there, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I'm super glad I didn't do it. Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad. I'm super happy with what I and we are doing right now. So it started Kettle Fire, and then I think you and I met 6 months later at a time when Kettle Fire had one employee. I was working out of my apartment all day alone. I was just like going crazy, being basically the only person that I would see until like 5 p.m. every day.
Where was Nick at this time?
He was in Philadelphia.
Was he working on Kettle Fire much?
He was, yeah. He was just living at home in Philadelphia. So Nick is my brother and co-founder in Kettle Fire. And so, yeah, I spent that first year just working alone in San Francisco. And so when you and I met and you were like, hey, I'm going to quit my clinic and try and go full time on building a big health and wellness brand.
Lifestyle brand.
That's when we just decided, hey, we should meet up at various coffee shops all over San Francisco and work next to one another on our own things to stave off the loneliness.
Yeah.
And
it was still pretty lonely though.
It was still kind of lonely, yeah.
And then I said, hey, I was doing a lot of low carb stuff. There was a lot of promise with ketogenic diets I was using in my clinics. I already know how to make supplement stuff, and I'm doing it a lot already. And I think that would help a lot of people if there was because there's one exogenous keto at this time.
Yeah.
2, if you would count prove it, and then which you couldn't really buy unless you're part of this massive pyramid scheme. And then the I don't know what you're laughing. It's the truth.
I know it's true. It's just funny.
Or Ketokana, which at the time was like $89 and tasted terrible.
Yep.
And I played around with it myself. So I reached out to my what was our manufacturing relationship and sourced all these different ingredients, did some testing, and basically said, hey, I don't want to do this as like part of the other company I had. I think that there's something to be built around keto in general and putting out a lot of content and information, along with making products to make ketogenic diet easier. And you said, sweet, let's do it together.
Yep.
And
weasel my way in there.
So yeah, snuck in. It was, yeah. You said growth, and I was like, wow, sounds great.
Yeah. And that was kind of it. We just came up, said we should do something.
Yeah. We literally launched 2 months later?
Yeah.
3 months later.
I mean, we were first looking at launching turmeric sticks.
We were not. We were not doing that.
But yeah, and then launched Perfect Keto. And
Justin had the idea for a health and wellness lifestyle brand to have a stick pack filled with turmeric that you pour into coffee or tea or water or whatever. I thought it was like a cinnamon stick. Like that, or like a dried turmeric that people were going to unwrap and like use or chew on or something.
Would have crushed.
Yeah. That ship has sailed for sure. So launched, and yeah, after that, it's just sort of there's a graph. You look at like trends on Google of keto and everything else like that. It's very clear that we caused everything
completely
with launching Perfect Keto. But no, the goal up front, like I was saying, was just to. I wanted the product. It was something that I wanted to use. I know a lot of our friends wanted to use it.
Same.
It was crazy high priced. It was terrible. So there had to be a better way.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I actually still have an email where I sent it to you shortly after we met, where I think I sent you the link to the Ketokana exogenous ketones and was like, hey, I'm transitioning into keto. What do you think of this product? And you were just like, yeah, it's not good.
It's just, I'm sure I said a little bit more aggressive things than that, but
yeah, you said it could be better, and then had a frowny face, which was very aggressive. Yeah. And I just remember,
like
yeah, it sounds like you. Yeah, and so that was kind of like the beachhead and the first product that we launched for what we thought would, at the time, I think we thought would be a side business, and has just the demand for keto and the interest in keto, I think, is just at least certainly outstripped my expectations.
Right.
Outstripped all of the models I built behind the computer going into this thing.
Yeah. Just a model graveyard. So we launched, I was writing a lot of the content in the beginning. And then after that, it was just sort of a question of what are the products that, because I had sort of been toying around with keto for a while, but a lot of our friends in San Francisco, especially, were getting into it. It's like, what are all the problems that we were having at that point? And like, how can we
Yep.
make products to help satisfy these needs? And I think the second product we launched was the MCT oil powder. I mean, so there's two different things that I think that we approach product development in a very unique way. And one of them is obviously like we want them to be really good tasting, like just great products in general. But I think that another thing that comes on top of that is just the quality.
Yep.
And when we launched our MCT oil powder, like why I wanted to develop that, and we had to basically go to different ingredient manufacturers and ask them to use a different type of fiber because the only thing that was out at the time was Quest.
Yep.
And Quest had like soluble corn fiber, milk proteins, there's all these things that I learned from the previous company you don't need to have in products to have them taste good, to have them mix well, anything.
Yeah.
And so there's just all this trash in products. And so like especially my, I mean, you've become a stickler as well, but my strict nature of nutrition in general, like what I put in my body, the bar is very, 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 very high.
Yep.
And in general, like we have like 83 products now?
Yep.
Something like that.
83 SKUs.
That's sort of the first filter of like, can we make this product ultra healthy, ultra clean? And then like, can we make it the best product humanly possible? Taste wise, texture wise, performance, mixing, etc. And that was sort of like how we created our first, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 products.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that still informs what we're doing today.
Totally. It's just, it's less of I would say like a selfish motivation of like, I want these products as this for me and my friends.
Yeah.
And is way more driven by like needs of a broader audience, I would say.
I mean, I think it's crazy. Like looking at the supplement space, which is kind of where we started, and frankly, food has this problem as well. It's still nuts to me how complicated a lot of these companies make it. Like I often think back to the what the RTD coffee guys were telling you, like when you went up there around adding coffee flavoring and like all of this kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell that story? Like, I just think this is endemic in food everywhere.
Yeah. So it's way easier for us to make food products. And that was sort of like, once we got some traction, as Justin would say, in the original company, like, okay, this is a real thing, which is like 3-4 months later. And I'm going to focus all my time on this and leave behind my other company, which Justin just convinced me to leave my previous company for. The goal
sound like a bad influence.
The goal at that point was always just to make as many great food products as possible. And launching a lot of the supplement products allowed us to get there faster, just building a business model that was sustainable. And when we were beginning, we were sort of a small player, small fish in a small pond. It was really, really hard to get our values across to people. We went and we were doing a lot of R&D because I wanted to make a keto coffee, sort of like the high fat coffee with not a tons of MCT oil, so it doesn't blast your gut, and just like a really, really clean one. And I at the time there wasn't one out there that I really liked. There isn't one now either, but it's a conversation for another day. But we went to do the R&D, and they use really shitty coffee, and I was just like, yes, it mixed well, the flavor was fine, but the coffee just tasted like crap. Yeah. I'm like, so my head of supply chain and we went out there and we sat down there and tasted coffee after coffee after coffee. I'm like, you guys, just like, here's the deal. We need to start with just like a good coffee. Like, can I just try the coffee on its own? It was terrible. And then so they tried to add in like a natural flavor and like a coffee extract and like this. I'm like, no, guys, stop it.
No,
stop. And like, can we just start with brewing a good coffee? Like, can we have a good cold brew and then put it with these ingredients? And like, no, I think what will happen is like, if we add more flavor, we can cover up that taste. So like they weren't willing to start with good ingredients to begin with. It's like, as you may know, if you follow any of our stuff or look at our product line, we don't have this product yet.
Yeah.
It's because we've been working on it for a little over 2 years because nothing has met our bar yet. And so it's really frustrating, but the approach with big food manufacturing is just basically how can we put a bunch of junk in it to trick somebody's brain into thinking that it's good for you or tasty or whatever, which I think is tragic. It's like the more simple we can keep things, the better they are. Like, so often when I cook meals here in my house, it's like I get out of the way and I just buy really fresh stuff that's local.
Yeah.
People go, oh, holy shit, this is an amazing meal. I'm like, yeah, just basically bought stuff from a farm around the corner.
Yeah.
Or I bought meat from, around the block from a local butcher shop. It's like, it's not that hard when you do it that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that this problem is endemic in food and supplements in general. It's crazy to me that so many of these companies just approach the how do we make something tasty from the standpoint of like, they start with something that maybe arguably is fine. Like apparently 60 years ago or whatever, Doritos and kettle chips like were basically two ingredients. It was like some sort of chip fried in tallow. And then gradually over the years, they changed that from switched out tallow for vegetable oil. And then they go, well, this like leads to some sort of sogginess. Let's add this natural flavoring. Let's add this like preservative. Let's add all of these things. And what you get over this long period of time is this total crap product that all of these big food companies have spent, 30 years perfecting. Like, did you ever read Salt, Sugar, Fat or something like this? But it's basically this book about big food and how they kind of trick your senses into thinking that, trick you basically into wanting to eat more of whatever products they're developing. It's called Salt, Sugar, Fat. That's what it is. And so they talk a little bit about how the Dorito is like perfectly engineered so that when it hits your tongue, it gives you enough of an umami flavor that you think it's like a fatty thing. But then you eat it and it's like carby. And so your body is like, ooh, we need more of that because it wasn't enough fat. It's not satiating. And we just need to like consume. And so you just end up eating your way through a whole bag, and Frito-Lay kind of laughs all the way at the bank. But it's like a product specifically engineered to, with no health considerations in mind, no quality considerations in mind, just like how can we get people to mindlessly consume as many bags of this product as possible? And that's how most of the food space operates, which is insane.
Yeah, which then leads to the entire supportive system around food development, which is what we're trying to play in.
Yep.
So we go try to make a product, and they go, "Oh, just put all the garbage ingredient X, Y, or Z in there, and that's how you make a bar. That's how you make this." We're like, "No, stop it, stop,
Put it down."
It is actually really, really challenging. So the whole industry behind not even the brands that sell the food products, Frito-Lay, et cetera, but everything that supports them, that, food R&D, food manufacturing, et cetera, is like nearly impossible to make healthy products that also taste good.
Yeah.
As the way it's set up, which is crazy because it's actually not that hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard. It's certainly slightly more expensive, but it's not hard. And like, if you're a R&D lab or a food science lab or something like this, these guys for 20 years have had clients coming to them and no one's been asking like, oh, why don't you just use real whole food ingredients? Everyone is competing in the like, how can I make the cheapest thing possible that still fulfills some set of consumer needs? And this is like the trend that I think we're kind of supporting and succeeding from and benefiting from is consumers for the first time in quite some time are actually paying attention to what they're putting in their bodies. There actually like is more knowledge in general, I think now than ever before around like what goes into your body actually determines your health outcomes in a huge way.
Yeah. And I mean, what did you guys experience with Kettle Fire when you first started? I mean, did you have any problems with this?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, the way that most, like especially in broth, I mean, at least Perfect Keto, we were playing in, when we started, we were in the supplement world where people are, there are expensive supplements, there are cheap supplements. There's kind of a range, like a price range there. When you think about broth or stock, people are used to paying 89 cents for stock at Walmart. It's just like an incredibly commodity, cheap category to play in. And so when we came in and our first product was $9.99 on shelf, people were like, what the heck? Like,
who are you?
Yeah, what do you think you're doing? Yeah. And so we had that exact same problem. Like we went to manufacturing partners and said, we want to make this broth. We want to cook all of these bones that we're sourcing. We want to cook them for 24 hours at least. Because we think that's where you get the maximum amount of nutrients out of the bones. That's what makes a bone broth a bone broth. And we literally got laughed at. We called over 300 different manufacturing partners. And what they were saying was like, look, I can make a product for some other soup company or some other broth company, some other stock company. I will cook this stuff at super high heat under crazy amounts of pressure for 90 minutes and I'm done. That whole batch is out of my cauldron. You want me to like cook it?
Cauldron. Sounds very medieval.
It kind of is. I mean, it's certainly a interesting process, but they were basically like, you want me to cook this stuff for, what is that? Like, I didn't sleep well last night. 18 times longer.
Perfect.
Than what we're cooking our stuff right now. Like that ties up our capacity, that ties up our line time. We have to like staff the line during that entire period. It's just a 24-hour cook time is insane. And so we literally got laughed at. 300 co-packers, 300 manufacturing partners told us no over the first 10 months while we were trying to develop this product.
So then you and Nick just had to get a cauldron.
Strapped on my apron and
and here we are today. This house smells really bad. Just bones all the time everywhere. It's disgusting. No, I mean, but it did end up leading you guys to doing your own manufacturing line.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we basically, we found that there were not partners that were super willing to cook product this long. And they were not willing to source even bones that were 100% grass-fed, grass-finished. Like we basically went into these manufacturing partners and said, finally convinced one to cook it for, cook the bone broth for 24 plus hours. And then they were like, oh, I mean, we don't know. We can get you a bunch of like factory farmed cattle bones if you want to do that. And we were like, no, we'd need grass-fed, grass-finished. And they were like, well, we can't help you. And so we're like, okay, guess we'll go source all of our own bones then. It was just like this, at every level, I have been shocked at how much harder it is to do the right thing from a health standpoint than just kind of like go with the inertia that the food industry and like the food manufacturing industry kind of has right now.
Totally. And I think that what a lot of people don't realize is that it's like everything is set up for you to push you into an area to make worse products.
Yep.
And for a lot of brands, a lot of companies, when they start, because they don't have the expert traction man behind the nerd behind the computer, they raise a lot of money, they launch a product, it's like they have pressures to reduce the cost of their production of their entire product very quickly. So they have to make trade-offs or they go to business.
Yep.
And so in a time like where you're like, okay, I want to survive versus not, then you start making trade-offs. Those happen over a long period of time, and then you're just making shitty products after a while.
Totally. I mean, take a look at, I read some article, or maybe it was just kind of saw it on Twitter or something, but if you take a look at Kind Bar, like,
don't get me fucking started with that.
No, I know, but like look at their ingredient statement and how it's changed over the last 5 years. Like they effectively started out as a bar that like sure had some sugar in it, but like mostly whole ingredients. You could see the stuff. Now they've just like they've taken out chunks of real macadamia nuts. There's just like a ton of trade-offs.
Yeah, I think it's like when I looked at it, you got an airplane, just they were handing them out, and I took as many as I could so nobody else could eat them. And I was looking at the ingredients.
Flushed them down the toilet.
And it was like canola, like several different vegetable oils, like 2 or 3 different kinds of vegetable oils, 2 or 3 different kinds of corn syrup, like 4 different kinds of sugar. And it says like, what is their tagline? Like, do whatever's good for your body.
The kind thing.
Yeah, whatever. Oh, my God.
Good marketing. They got me. I knew that right off the top of my head. Yeah. What's Perfect Keto's tagline?
Be the best keto you can.
Listen to the Keto Answers podcast by Perfect Keto.
That's exactly it.
But yeah, it's kind of it's an incredible travesty, I think.
Food system sucks, man.
Yeah.
It's one of these things where we talk about and get on these several hour rants, which we were hoping to maybe capture a little bit of on the podcast. But oh man, I mean, it's like for brands like us to manufacture products that are actually clean label and good for people. Like, thank God for all the support we have. Yeah. That we're able to start driving this thing forward. Like, there's a reason why we're not in retail yet. Like, it's really expensive to make our products.
Yeah, incredibly so.
And so when you have somebody else who's making ingredient trade-offs in their products, and they can sell a bar at 90 margin on their website and go into retail really fast. Like that's one of the reasons why we're not in retail currently. Is because, I mean, we have such high quality products and high quality ingredients. We don't have a lot of margin to reinvest into our products compared to other brands.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it still is insane the cost on some like. Our nut butter is one of the most expensive things that you could buy from in the nut butter category. It's nuts. And that is entirely driven by the quality of our ingredients.
Surprised you guys haven't like held me down, giving me nuggies yet, trying to get that vanilla bean out of there. It's because we use vanilla bean powder, like raw vanilla bean powder. And this is something that I was like, nope, has to have it when we started making it.
Yep.
And I mean,
now it's more expensive than silver on a per pound basis.
So you guys are literally
Didn't see that coming.
more than silver. And yeah, so but that's what makes it so amazing. You know what I mean? So one of the reasons why it's like that, why when you lived with me last year, you would come home every single day, walk literally straight to the fridge, get a spoon, and eat half of a jar of nut butter.
It's for my health.
Yeah,
for heart health.
Literally every single day. That's why.
I know it's a really crazy system.
So yeah, I mean, you have from the brand's eye, it's like it's really hard to do the right thing to scale and to like reach everybody where they want to buy the products. Then from the other side, from like big food, like they don't give a shit about health. They care about making money first and foremost, and you don't make money on, like, we've taken $0 from Perfect Keto. Like, we've actually lost money on Perfect Keto technically, and in debt. So I mean, this is like one of the things where, like, if we were trying to get ultra rich, we would not have these health and wellness lifestyle brands with really high quality products. So we would do things like the other way, where we can leverage these disgusting food systems.
Yep.
And then you get people who are just so confused about health and nutrition, who I hope they are like trying to do the right things, but like we're talking about now, like lab grown meat and things like that, where it's just like, now we're making such weird fake food.
Yeah.
On the assumption that that is going to be better than real food.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And like then people get blasted with such different information from every different source. They get confused, don't know what to do. And yeah, I think it's a real problem.
I know. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the fake meat thing. I think, can we go on that for a bit?
I wanted to tee you up because I knew you
did
hit a home run here.
Yeah. I mean, I hate these guys. Like, I think that the fake food or the fake meat stuff, I think those guys are going to be like the trans fats of, 20 years from now. Like the whole thing that they're passing off, this canola, soy protein or pea protein isolate patty as a healthy choice for people.
Which is also like really expensive. They're not cheap.
Yeah, it's insane to me. And the fact that they take this like, oh, we are better for the environment and better for your health angle, I just think is nuts. Like,
oh man, it's total bullshit.
Yeah, it's complete bullshit. And like one thing I just keep thinking about, or one of the fundamental ideas that I have, or things I believe in the world, is, you've read like Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb and all this. I think that his idea of this idea of like the precautionary principle, where you need, like, if you're introducing something new into a complex system like human biology, the burden of proof should be on that new thing to prove that it's safe, not on the complex system. And like applied to food, was that too nerdy?
Yeah, so I think it was like 3 or 4 podcasts ago. I did a podcast with Mike Mutzel, and we were talking about this, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know, like lab grown meat's not that bad." And I basically said this exact same thing.
Yeah.
My explanation was like, okay, so you're going to tell me that we aren't even close to understanding the human body as a complex system. No. And if we were, we wouldn't need lab grown meat, because we would be able to cure every single disease and everything immediately with the snap of a finger. Okay, so we have the human body as a complex system that we're saying we agree that we don't understand.
Yep.
And then we're going to create what mimics another complex system, which is an animal, which we clearly don't understand.
Yep.
And then we're going to combine both of those things.
Yep.
And expect that we know the ramifications.
It's crazy. And I think that, like, looking at the last 50 years of nutrition history, I think, Americans in particular, now you're seeing this in China, like the rate of type 2 diabetes in China has up like 10,000% in the last 20 years.
In Japan, in like all these countries.
It's everywhere. And so I look at like what got introduced into our culture around that time, and it's like this crazy rise of processed foods, high carb, high sugar, low, all of this stuff. And I think that you'd have to be kind of crazy to look at all of the food that's been introduced into people's diets and routines over the last 50 years, see the negative impact that it's had on human health, and go like, yeah, we know what we're doing. Like, we're totally fine to introduce this frankenfood back into people's diets and expect there will be no negative repercussions. It's insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of different areas about this that really piss me off. One of them just being like even people who argue like, okay, meat might be healthier, but it's like better for the environment. It is not.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Sorry, it's not. This is not true.
Can you talk more about that? Because I think this is something a lot of people don't necessarily understand.
Yeah. So we have to think about like how the world, like how farming works and like why it's good to have animals on pasture. So when you have an animal walking around eating stuff, they're like lightly tilling the ground. They're taking dumps everywhere. They're stomping on that dump. Cow pies. Like that's fertilizing the ground. Then you have what's called soil, which is dirt. That is like very plentiful. That actually is a gigantic carbon sink.
Yeah.
It's a gigantic, like, so carbon in the atmosphere can be sequestered, pulled into the earth by just having appropriate soil content, period.
Yep.
So not only that, but then you have also the ecosystem of, you know, a grassland, for example, or if you look out at any prairie, also needs to have sort of like how your gut has a microbiome, right? It needs to have all these different bacteria, things complementing each other. If you don't have that, you kill everything, right? So like if you have, you know, food poisoning, for example, you have everybody knows about how important gut health is, you need probiotics, et cetera. The same thing happens with land as well. Any living system, and like land is a living system where it needs to have all these interplay. Okay, when you take a crop like corn or soy or anything that's grown massively for wheat, everything that's in these Franken foods or heavily vegan or vegetarian diet, and like I don't care about, like, let's just remove the aspect of arguing about health claims.
Yep.
It is worse for the environment to plant these crazy long crops over and over and over again that have to be sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. That, you know, when you plant one crop over and over and over again, that like that's not a normal scenario. We've had animals roaming this planet for literally billions of years. Yep. That's normal. What's not normal is taking the same seed, putting it in the same soil, extracting the same nutrients over and over and over again, and destroys the soil. It pulls all the nutrients out. It makes the biodiversity of that land very fragile and very narrow. It just destroys the entire ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, I get personally frustrated when I see companies like, I think Impossible is a pretty notorious company that claims this stuff where it's like, takes 40 gallons of water to make 1 pound of meat or something like that. And it's like, they're counting the water that feeds the grass, which humans aren't eating. Like, you know, it rains on a grassland. They then say, oh, well, all of the water that went to, you know, feed this grass, and then the cow eats the grass. And so it costs like, you know, 40 gallons of water.
Let's just use common sense here and realize that a cow is not a closed system.
Yeah.
Meaning that if a cow drank 40 gallons of water, it does not just go in the cow and then stays in the cow and you can't ever reclaim that water.
Right.
Which is just absurd. Like, this is not how it works.
Yep.
This is not how we. This isn't a closed sink system where cows just absorb infinite amounts of water. Like, a cow doesn't absorb. I mean, how many pounds is a cow? 1,000?
Yeah, 1,200.
So we're talking about like 40,000 gallons of water going into a cow and not coming out. Is this what happens?
Right.
Someone please try to prove this to me. Like, bring a cow to a lab and see if they can drink 40,000 gallons of water and see what happens. It's ridiculous.
It's completely ridiculous. I think this is one of the things that worries me about tech kind of moving into food in some ways. Is like a lot of people in technology and a lot of tech's view on the world in general, I think, is like extremely reductionist. Like, oh, you know, Soylent, I think, is the perfect example of this, of like, here is the nutrition guidelines. They say you need 2,000 calories. They say you need 50 grams, or I think it's 200 grams of carbs per day. And so we will make a shake that if all you drink is Soylent 5 times a day, you will meet all of your nutritional needs.
Oh, I mean, it also has quote unquote micronutrients, which are in weird processed forms that the body can actually absorb and use.
Of course.
I mean, one of my greatest fears in life is not the AI apocalypse or nuclear winter like a lot of other people. It's literally that people are going to be persuaded that they're making the right ethical choice, the right nutritional choice, using this lab-grown meat shit. We're going to de-emphasize actual livestock. We're thinking, oh, we can't kill cows, so we're not going to have any of this stuff. And we're literally going to destroy this planet and not be able to eat real food. Like, in 50 years, if I have children and they can't eat real food because of this lab-grown meat phenomenon, like, that would not surprise me at this point. And so, like, if we just keep going down this thing and be like, oh, we need to make a better choice. We need, like, it's ethical for this. You know, I'm just disappointed with people in technology who like they understand the stuff like that's posed in anti-fragile and complex systems.
Yeah.
But they don't tie this very simple connection to the human body. It's like, okay, we don't understand this.
Yep.
What, look at the Lindy effect for human body over the last several billion years. Or, I mean, not billion, but, let's say like for 2 million years. I saw this tweet today. It was hilarious. It was like, thank God for the resiliency of hominids over the last 2 million years to be able to survive on animal fat. And thank God for modern technology in the last 100 years for people to develop this like highly processed hexane-based production of fat so that just in time it will save us.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
We've been like all animals and on all walks of life have been, in a normal state, but have not flipped everything upside down and expected that to fix things moving forward. Like, why do we think that's going to work? This is such a basic question to me.
I know. I mean, I think that this is where I tend to be hopeful in general, is that I think that people are becoming more and more aware about the negative impacts of things they put in their bodies. And I think that because this meat stuff is so bad for you, like I think in the next couple of years, we will have the first kind of pushbacks around maybe this isn't exactly what you should be putting in your body. Maybe we're starting to see some of the negative impacts of people incorporating this in their diet in a regular way.
Yeah, but the whole ethical play, to me, I think is a really tough one to get around. I think that people are going to still see that and be like, oh, well, it might be worse for me, but I'm making the planet better. I'm not killing an animal. It's like, you guys need to wake up, man. If you're talking about killing an animal as being the reason why you're a plant-based or you're eating this stuff, it's like, okay, I kill one cow. It's about 1,000 pounds. Maybe the harvested weight of that's 600.
Yep.
The animal would feed me for literally a year.
Yeah.
If I eat one salad that I buy, or I go buy organic produce from Whole Foods, do you know how that stuff's harvested? They take these big machines, they crank through all this stuff, all these fields, and there's like per acre or something like several hundred crop kills on average. Mice, snakes, bunnies, etc. Like, are those living things less important than a cow?
I know.
Like, what about when you go outside to drive to Whole Foods and you look at your windshield afterwards? You've killed hundreds of bugs.
Yeah,
you
or
goddamn
carbon
murder.
emissions,
You step on an ant. Like what? You think an ant as a life form is less important than a cow? Why? Because a cow looks more like you than an ant?
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is where a lot of people's kind of moral and ethical philosophies get a little bit confused. But yeah, I mean, I tend to think that when, and from talking to some of these people, you dig and dig and dig on, why do they believe some of these things? And there's not really a good reason for any of it. It's more of just I want to feel like a better person. And I can tell myself this story that if I eat a canola oil burger that makes me sicker, I'm a better person. It's very strange.
Virtue signaling.
Huh?
The
complete virtue signaling. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so is it a problem of information? Is it a problem of education? Is it a problem of I don't know. I don't know where to I don't know where the lever is there, the most effective one yet.
Yeah. Virtue signaling is a notoriously tough thing to fight.
Sure is. But it's like regenerative agriculture. I mean, if we can show that is more virtuous.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Exactly. I am encouraged by all of the stuff that I see happening I sound like the optimist in this conversation, but, but I am encouraged by all that I see starting to happen in regenerative ag. I think it's going to be one of the more meaningful movements to happen over the next 10 years from a food standpoint.
How would you break down regenerative agriculture for people who don't understand that term?
Yeah. So I'm still new to diving into the regenerative ag space, but my current understanding, so feel free to chime in if I'm off about this, but my current understanding is basically regenerative ag is a way of approaching agriculture as a system and not this land is, how can we optimize this land for growing one certain type of crop? It's instead trying to optimize for the health of the ecosystem as a whole.
Right. And so it's basically bridging what I've talked about with when you grow just one or three crops and you destroy the entire ecosystem. There's no biodiversity. There's, the plant life dies. There's no more bees, stuff like this.
No more bees.
No more bees. We need bees, man.
Oh, I love bees.
And this is one of those things where we go from that to using a system that actually works together.
Yeah.
So you can have chickens grazing on one part at one time, then the next year you have cows there, then after that you plant a crop, and then you sort of rotate in and out.
Yep.
And you build the soil back up. And I mean, you looked at this as far as from a sort of an economic standpoint, and it actually makes way more sense from regenerative agriculture than just planting one crop over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can plant multiple crops. You can get livestock in there. You can get animals in there. All of which you can actually make more money doing as a farmer. Like this is one of the reasons I'm most excited about regenerative, is because I tend to take a pretty, I don't know. I think it's really hard for things to happen until the economics actually make sense. Right. And in the case of regenerative, I think that so many farmers are kind of 20 years into growing conventional ag. They're seeing their yields dropping. They're seeing their topsoils erode. They're seeing like they can't sell a soybean or an acre of corn for as much as they used to be able to. And regenerative ag is not only good for the land, but like good for the farmer from the early numbers we're seeing from a profit standpoint, which is incredibly exciting. Like if it makes sense for you to do good and do the right thing, there's a lot of people that will do that, in my opinion.
But
always a but.
The switching cost. It's like,
yes,
you think it's hard to switch from an Android to an iPhone. Come on, man. Like you're talking about doing 20, 30, 40 years of farming one way in land that, I mean, it takes several years of transition over into being more profitable.
Yeah.
So this is a problem that
has to be a better way.
There has to be a better way.
Yeah. So I'm sure some smart, enterprising young buck will figure out a way to help the transition to regenerative ag.
Some nerd behind a computer. Potentially.
Potentially.
If only he can get his REM sleep up.
I have been having problems.
You want to talk about your sleep for a little bit here for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. I really like how the direction of this podcast at a high level. It's Justin is stuck behind the nerd behind the computer, has terrible sleep. Anthony,
yeah, but it's very optimistic about the future of humanity.
It's optimistic about the future. So my sleep's been pretty fucked up. I've had like 2.5 months of really struggling to get proper amount of, not the proper amount of sleep. I just apparently haven't been getting any REM sleep. Now that said, I have been reading papers. I'm not sure that the Oura Ring is measuring this stuff properly, but there have certainly been way too many nights where I'm at like 5 hours of sleep, and I don't need the Oura Ring to tell me that. I think that so we can dive into it. But basically, I've had way too many nights over the last 2 months.
We've talked about this a little bit in the last, I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. And I mean, so you've had a lot of life changes. You moved.
Ended a long 3-year relationship.
A relationship change. Work has been pretty crazy.
Yep.
So there's a lot of like major life things. Like it's always like, okay, optimize how I would approach this from if you were just a random person off the street that I was trying to help, and not
help me.
You're not a nerd behind a computer I was trying to sabotage.
I'm a random person.
I would go about this way and be like, okay, those things, like obviously it's like they're giant and there's only so much you can do about them. It's like, have the big supportive things done. But then like how I always think about health, less from those large traumatic events or exciting events, depending on how you look at them. Like what is the environment and how abnormal is that?
Yeah.
And so then it goes down to like a very basic thing of like, what is the light situation like?
Yep.
And so,
So do you want to just talk through some of the things I've been testing? So one of the things, as Anthony was saying, is kind of like looking at what is the environment like in which I've been having these struggles. And it's funny, I'm not really sure why I've had these sleep issues in the last 2.5 months when my environment's been pretty consistent. Like I've gotten in a habit over the last year or so of coming home and, hanging out, doing social stuff, eating dinner, whatever. But instead of winding down, which I know you have a evening wind down routine, I kind of like get in 1 to 2 hours of super productive work and spend a lot of that time, on the computer just working while you, CEO, just kind of stretch and hang out, laze, go to sleep.
Yeah.
And so cry.
Mostly cry.
Yeah.
Martha just pets me to sleep without crying.
It's beautiful.
He's seated a few times.
It's moving, truly moving. And so I don't really I haven't had a wind down routine, and I'm not sure if all of these life changes have kind of caused a change in my sleep or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I've had like bright lights in my eyes and in my environment, up until 15 minutes before I go to bed many times.
Yeah. So the way I think about it is like the major things in life eliminate and completely eradicate a buffer. So I think a lot of times, like, you're a very healthy guy.
Yep.
And when you have stuff very stable, you just have a very large buffer. So you can get away with those things of, light, stimulation, et cetera, maybe a not optimized environment. But then when your buffer completely goes away because of some of these large events, I think that you just experience that way more.
Yeah.
And so that's my hypothesis.
I mean, so this past weekend, I took a day kind of off the grid in the afternoon. I like didn't look at phones, didn't turn on lights. Was in this hotel room, basically deep in nature. Didn't turn on lights, so 8 p.m. it was dark, and then was in bed by 9:30. I slept so well, like literally the best sleep I've had in the last year.
My hypothesis is confirmed.
It was crazy.
What did you eat that day?
I didn't eat much.
Did you have any soup or?
Yeah, had a bowl of udon. No noodles, obviously.
Yeah, right.
But little bowl of ramen, some bone broth, some blueberries.
Nice.
Yeah, and yes, it didn't eat that much, but it was just the best night of sleep I've had in so long.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like you are just one of the most, I don't know what word to use here. That isn't going to sound suggestive, but stimulated people. People that I know in my life. But you're just always consuming like input and output and like networking like crazy and always on the go. I don't know if I've seen you in a point of like solitude or like in nature for extended period of time.
Yeah.
Since I've known you.
Petaluma.
Yeah. I mean, the one day
times, yeah.
we're doing this like just retreat. We're going over a lot of stuff. Just taking some time off work. And then we woke up in the morning and like you were immediately taking a phone call. Like, oh shit. Like this guy. Yeah. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if that's reproducible. If you could do that in Austin.
Yeah.
Like if this weekend, you're leaving. You're leaving this weekend, right?
Yeah. I'm doing the opposite and going to Las Vegas.
Perfect.
Yeah. For a fun trip.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you could reproduce that here.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, for the next 36 hours, I will take all of your devices and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if it like banish you from hanging out with X amount of like, be like, okay, you can hang out with max 2 people.
Yeah.
And you have to disengage at 7 p.m. Like, here's a rule. Like, what happens?
Yeah. I am planning on doing that within the next 2 weekends, just because I do want to get a better sense of, is this a sleep issue that is purely mediated by lifestyle, or is it something, more serious? And so I think that the screens intervention and a wind down routine is like an incredibly easy change to make in my life. And if that doesn't solve it, then like, let's take it up a notch and look at other things.
You know what I was thinking the other night? Actually, I was thinking about this and how one of the things I told Justin a couple weeks ago was like,
you're thinking about me in bed?
Yeah, I was. I was crying. Martha was petting me. This guy has like a social event, multiple ones, every single night of the week, like indefinitely.
This guy being me.
Yeah, you.
Yeah.
He's telling the audience, this guy here. And I'm wondering, like, even if you had reduced sleep, I wonder if there's like a net positive benefit from like the amount of social activity you get, like almost would offset the net negative of sleep.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, probably not entirely, but it'd be interesting to see like what the offset there would be if we were to be able to quantify it.
Totally.
Versus me, like if I don't get any sleep, I'm still a pretty lonely person. If Martha's not here, it's pretty grim. And so like I feel it, man. I feel it. But like usually, like, it is interesting. Like we have talked about this a lot, where you will get you'll get 5 hours of sleep, and you'll be a shell of Anthony Gustin the next day, which is
like
sad.
Dude, go home, like get some sleep. I went, I think. And this is not a brag, by the way, people, like definitely sleep if you can. This is just something I've been trying to work through and fix. But I think I went like 4 or 5 nights on 5.5 hours of sleep and was still like functioning, I think, at a relatively high level, or you probably couldn't have told until maybe the 5th day when I was like, yo, my sleep has been horrendous.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. I am a complete shell most of the time. And then, yeah, when lack of sleep, it crushes me. And maybe it's because I have no friends and I'm just forced to have this nightly shutdown where I cry myself to sleep. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different factors. And I think that
Totally.
if you're trading off sleep because you're getting these extra things, it's not like you're watching cat videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, you save that for the morning usually.
Yeah, always.
I mean, it's not,
Scarlett takes a tumble.
I mean,
8 a.m.
And like the social settings are like this. I mean, it's not like you're again crying and having someone pet you to sleep. It's like you're always a super happy guy laughing. Like there's so many different aspects of life. And so if you're trading off a lot of positivity, but like you know, letting some go.
Totally.
Is it really that terrible? I mean, you have so many of these studies that are like, okay, well, if people are deprived of sleep or whatever, like, I mean, there's so many other factors that we're not
totally
measuring here.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think that one thing we probably undervalue as a society is just like relatively low, the positive impact that low stress and strong, meaningful emotional relationships have on people.
What about like physical relationships?
Physical relationships?
Yeah.
Oh, we value those properly. We get a lot of those at work. But yeah, I think that we just tend to undervalue these areas in our lives kind of consistently. And I mean, I know for me, like it was shocking to me as someone who, you know, intentionally ended my last relationship. Just what came out of that, like how I was sleeping, how I was feeling, like my energy levels were way lower, like just everything. I mean, it's crazy the impact that ending that relationship, which changed nothing about my physical day-to-day, didn't change what I eat, didn't change anything, massively impacted, you know, my emotional well-being, energy, all of that for like weeks afterwards. It was just wild. And I think we probably underappreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just what you notice as well, you know what I mean? It's like
right.
That can affect your body and that leads to different things. I mean, this is sort of when you started the sleep problems, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So who knows what was tied back to this? You know?
Right. Like when I started peeing green, I don't know if that's relationship oriented or what, but it's green now.
What color green? Does it glow in the dark? Oh, hey, something I wanted to bring up to you. This is totally unrelated that I saw the other day. I don't know if you've caught this on the Twitter sphere, but turns out that the Longo hangs his hat on this, blue zones, that all these blue zones might actually just be a bunch of shit.
Really?
Because they're actually areas where they've all found to have inaccurate reporting of birth and death records. And so people that they thought were living to 100 actually aren't 100. They're like 80.
Wow.
Yeah. Like those,
no way.
Yeah, like them apples.
Can you send me that?
Yeah, there's a paper on it, like an actual published research paper.
Wow.
That I bookmarked yesterday. I'm going to read into. I'm going to put this in my weekly newsletter, of course, and dig into it. But
man, this is just why. Like, this is why I'm just so skeptical of every bit of like all of this stuff that comes out. Where you're like, this is the answer to human health. You know, ignore all the ancestral health stuff. Ignore like first principles thinking around health. Ignore like systems complexity. This is how you should eat. You're in a blue zone. It's just like, it's crazy how often this type of research gets blown up.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
So I thought you would like that.
That I like it and hate it. Makes me want to laugh and cry.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody has no idea what the hell I'm talking about, there's been all this work that's been done on people figuring out blue zones, which are these seven areas in the world that people have known to be at a high concentration of 100-plus-year-olds. Centenarians. And so they've done a lot of research. Then people do this stupid epidemiological research and be like, oh, well, they ate fava beans or fermented kimchi. And so therefore everybody should eat fermented kimchi, or you should eat whatever, plant protein. Walter Longer is one of these guys who's sort of hung his hat on that and now has recently made a shit you not, a fasting bar.
7 grams of sugar.
A bar that helps you, when you eat it, helps you fast, which I don't even know where to go with that one, but
that is crazy.
Yeah, that you're not fasting if you're eating. It's just that bit, and it has like the first ingredient's honey.
Yeah, we should try and come out with a water bar and see if people try and eat that.
And it's just sand. A bottle of sand. Call it hydrate bottle. God damn it. This is so stupid.
Incredible.
But anyways, all of his work is based upon these blue zones. He wrote a book about it, Longevity Diet. Everybody emails me like, oh, I'm doing everything that Walter's saying. And yeah, hopefully some of this stuff we can just think about it, like you said, from first principles or complex systems.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, it's fascinating to me, like his fast mimicking diet, which is a diet where you eat stuff that mimics fasting. And one of the things is dessert, and everything else has like a ton of fake processed ingredients in it. It's just like, I continue to see this weird disconnect in people who are kind of like technology and researchers who just completely underappreciate the quality of food aspect of things. It's wild.
So you remember that the Eric Weinstein, Pierre Thiel podcast?
Of course.
So this is the podcast called The Portal. If you're a super nerd, get into it. It's awesome. But Peter Thiel was on there, and they were talking about how people and researchers especially, they are so narrow-minded now. There's not a lot of polymaths, and people like get chastised if they go outside their field and if they're not researching the one thing. And so I think that like technology and science are sort of in the same thing. Where like if you're not in AI, only focused on AI, then you are an imposter, and like you have to go super deep.
Yeah.
And the same thing in research. And I think that when you do that, you just miss out on so much other stuff.
For sure.
And I think that's what a lot of research, like I'm sure Wongo thinks he's doing a great job, and I'm sure he's focused on the stuff. But like when you don't like step back and be like, okay, I'm gonna learn a little bit about this over here and a little bit about this over there, and then try to connect some dots, I think you miss out on a lot.
Right. Like think about, why does the world need a fasting bar, which breaks the fast? That would be a good question to ask.
Well, to make fasting easier. Duh.
Yeah. After running tons of studies, we found the way to make fasting easier
is by not fasting.
To feed people.
Oh my God, absurd.
Thank God he's a researcher. We need that sort of evidence-based
and it's like
methodology. In our
let's
lives.
just say that, okay, we did some research. We found out that, okay, people actually get the same benefits if they eat 750 calories-ish, whatever, as they do in fasting. So that way you don't have to actually fast. You can mimic fasting, and here's the protocol. Yeah. Okay, if that's the case, give them real food.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to give them fake shit.
Yeah, exactly.
This just blows my mind.
Yeah. We found ourselves back at the food system sucking.
Here we go, full circle.
From me being a remless incel all the way back to the food system.
I mean, what is that? We probably wrap at that point, I think. Been an hour in. Anywhere you want to give people access to as far as personal information, social security number, blood sample, semen sample?
Nope, it's all on my Twitter.
All that?
Nope, I just want to apologize to everyone that had to listen to me for half of this podcast.
Yeah, you guys got
first time out from behind my computer in forever. So.
You guys now have some insight in how Perfect Keto HQ operates on a day-to-day basis. This is sort of like what it looks like.
We'll see the number of job applicants plummet after this.
It's going from 2 to 0.
Yeah. Sorry to your subscriber count.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Keto Answers podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, but even if you didn't, I would love a review. Just go over to iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and pop in a review so we can get found by more people, get better guests, and have the information that you need. So please go to iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and leave us a review. And if you're new to keto, head on over to perfectketo.com/podcast and enter your email for all our top tips and guides on getting started with the ketogenic diet. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.